guys, what's going on? Thanks for tuning into my channel. When I started wing foiling, I had no idea what I was getting into. I just knew this sport looked awesome and I was going to do whatever it took to get good at the sport. Now, I want to share with you guys my progression from my first session to my 8th session and also give you some tips that I would have found super helpful if I had learned throughout my journey. This will hopefully help you guys get a understanding of what to expect when you start wing foiling and how long it's going to take for you to get up and riding comfortably and doing all kinds of different maneuvers. So let's get into this video, but first, intro. When you start wing foiling, a lot of people have different experience. Some people have windsurf, some people have kite surf, some people even have foil experience. I personally had a little bit of kite surf, a little bit of windsurf, but no foil experience. And man, was riding the foil way more challenging than I expected. Definitely, if you're bringing any skills to the table, I hope for your guys' sake you have a little bit of foil experience. Like I said, I had none, and that was the hardest thing to learn by far. Before my first session wing foiling, I actually went out with my board and my foil and got pulled behind a boat. Now, I highly recommend this if you do have access to a boat because I was blown away with how challenging it is to ride a foil. And doing it behind a boat, a lot less to worry about compared to flying your wing and learning to ride your foil at the same time. So when I went behind the boat, well, let me tell you one thing, I was pretty bad. And this was such a foreign feeling. I had never experienced anything like this before, and I definitely struggled right out of the gate. It probably took me 2 full sessions of a few hours each before I was finally comfortable riding the foil behind the boat. Don't have access to a boat, don't worry too much. It's just going to take you a little bit extra time to get up and going and get a feel for that foil. I'd estimate about 4 or 5 sessions more than if you had a couple behind the boat. So just keep that in mind, manage those expectations. So don't just expect yourself to pop up and start ripping on that foil right away. One really important aspect when you're learning to wing foil is your gear. I do have a video that shares all the gear that you need based on your body type and body size, because your gear is very important and some gear is going to help you learn and progress a lot quicker than other gear. So again, make sure to check that video out. My first 2 days going out wing foiling were lighter wind days. I think the wind was blowing just over 10 knots, which is very light, especially when you're a beginner, to get up and get going when you're wing foiling. I definitely don't recommend going out in anything under 15 knots for your first few sessions. It just makes it so much more challenging and you don't have the skills and technique to get up in light wind conditions. It wasn't a total loss for going out in those lighter wind conditions though, because I was able to just play around with my wing. I stayed pretty much on my board the whole time, but got an understanding of how to fly my wing, which is an important part about wing foiling. third session wing foiling, the wind was blowing at 15 knots, and it was amazing. It was the first time I actually was getting up and ripping on the foil, and the feeling was mind-blowing. As soon as you get up and ride that foil, you're hooked for life. It is the most incredible feeling. The only way it can be described is by flying, and you're just beyond stoked. So yeah, I was so excited. Basically on that third session, I was getting up, getting going, but I was also having some epic face plants. It was really challenging thinking about flying my foil at the same time as I was powering my wing. So I was just getting jolted by the wind, or underpowered and falling back, or just not having my weight distribution right and then tanking forward again. So some huge learning curves, but those moments in between were just incredible. Like I said, the feeling of flying on your foil is mind-blowing. So I can't wait for anyone who hasn't experienced it to get up and flying and get hooked on this sport. During that third session, I could ride both regular and goofy, but I'm a naturally regular stance, and I definitely found goofy to be a bit more challenging and feel a little bit awkward. I later learned that I was doing a lot of things wrong, and there were actually a bunch of tips that I wish I had known when I'd started out. One of them being just how to carry your setup properly. When I was doing long walks, going back upwind when I get blown down the beach, I didn't even really know how to carry my setup properly because I didn't really think about it. I've listed a bunch of these tips in my 5 tips for beginner wing foilers. If you are new, make sure to check out that video. It's some things that really helped me once I learned them the hard way, and hopefully they can help you guys out and increase that learning curve. During my third session, I definitely was having trouble controlling my board. I feel like I wasn't so much riding my board as I was surviving on my board for the times that I was up on foil. So that just gives you a sense of how I felt during that third session. Had the ripping, had the epic feeling of flying on the foil, but definitely wasn't in control, and I feel like the board was riding me more than I was riding the board. During my 4th and 5th session, that's when I feel like it really started to click. I was way more comfortable on the board. Getting up on foil was a breeze, pun intended, and just riding felt way more comfortable. One of the other things that I figured out, or starting to figure out, is I was still breaching and face planting, because I think that's still happening to me now, so you're never going to fully cross that off. But I learned a trick where when I hit that maximum point, and that's when you typically would drop down and face plant, I was able to, if you continue to lean back and ride out more of a stall, it's going to prevent that that board from kind of boomeranging into a face plant. So I was kind of testing that out. It wasn't a perfect situation on that 4th and 5th session, but definitely had a little bit of success floating down back onto the board versus just slamming down face first. So that was a definite plus. On that 5th session, I also started working on my knee starts. It's a much easier way to go from a down position to a standing position. I have a big enough board where I can just stand on my board and then pull my wing up and worry about generating forward momentum. But when you go down to a smaller board as you progress, a knee start's going to be mandatory, so it's always good to practice that knee start. It's also just a more comfortable way from going from a down kneeling position to that standing position. So by my 6th and 7th session, I was ripping and way more comfortable. I could actually ride the board, feel that foil underneath me, adjust my stance to compensate for how much lift I wanted, and really just, I don't know, just feel more comfortable flowing across the water. The other thing that's a huge part of this, especially in lighter wind days, are getting up on foil. I was definitely getting better at activating that front foil and using all the techniques that I had searched for on YouTube and applying them to actually getting up on that foil. On my 7th session, I also started trying to jibe. Typically before that, you're just kind of going one direction, falling flat, getting back up, facing the other direction, and then continuing on. So jibing is when you can, in one continuous motion, go from going one direction to facing the other way and flying in that direction. And on my 7th session, I was definitely having some success. Wasn't perfectly executing them. One thing I really found challenging was maintaining power in my wing during that full process. A part of that could be the bigger setup that I'm riding makes it a little more challenging, but it's just a weird feeling to kind of get the hold of, to go from one position, maintaining power, and switching your feet to go the other way in one fluid motion. Through my whole learning progression, there was one tip that I would say is the most important thing to think about or know or have when you're learning to wing foil, and that is the size of your board. I'm 5'8", about 173 pounds, and I was riding a 125 liter board, which was actually perfect for me. But it was lucky because I was definitely tossing up between how big a board I should get. I went bigger and I was very glad I did. Same goes with your foil. The bigger your foil, the easier it is going to be to actually get up and get riding. So depending on your weight and depending on your wind conditions, you want a big board and a big foil, and that's going to make your learning curve go way quicker. A lot of people say, I'm going to go smaller, it's just going to take me longer to learn, and I just see them struggling on the water. They literally can't even get up off their knees because it's a very challenging sport to learn. So if there's one thing you take away from this video, get a big setup. You're going to thank yourself beyond what I can ever tell you, because it's going to make your learning curve go a lot faster than if you had a smaller board. I was at my 10th session. I connected with a local board builder, Roberts Composites, who makes the best boards on the planet, and I upgraded to a smaller board. Now, their boards are custom made, so although they're a smaller board, which gives you better maneuverability, they're also a bit chunkier, so you still get that flotation, and it's easy if you're learning or starting out or just getting started on the foil to get balance. So Roberts Composites, amazing boards. I highly recommend them, and I can't wait to ride mine more and just keep going and keep flying on my foil. That's it for this video, guys. I hope you found this helpful, my progression from my first session to my 7th session. If you didn't start behind a boat, would love to hear how many sessions it takes you guys to get up and get flying on your foil when you're wing foiling. I know it was a huge learning curve assist for me to get behind a boat before I actually wing foiled, but for those of you who didn't get that, I'd be curious to see how long it takes you guys to get up and get flying. Check out my other videos because I know a lot of them have helped other people get up and get riding a lot quicker and increase that learning curve to get up and get flying and have that stoke. Thanks again for tuning into my channel, and stay tuned for the next one. Peace.